Welcome back to the Maximum Podcast. My name is Matt Hunter, and this is episode 12. Guys, famous number 12s or even 12th men, since this is a cricket show, of course. All I can think of in the cricket circles is your Yuvraj Singhs that wears number 12.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, like Dwight Howard in basketball / wrestler, I heard. Other 12s, I was thinking in the news, Nani Lamake with an interesting cover photo. He chucked up his own quote, which I thought was quite interesting. What about your thoughts, boys?
Yeah, I mean that's some of the great self-marketing from Nani there, isn't it? Like you just love to see it. Just think, oh, a lovely photo of him playing for the Canes, and then it's him just sort of tooting his own horn. So fantastic, probably the most famous 12 at the moment. Love it.
I'll tell you what. Speaking of 12, that's a move of about a 12-year-old, just quietly.
It was a quote from about like 5 years ago as well. That's the best part of it.
I did a bit of research for the top catch, and do you know who's been the 12th man the most in Test cricket?
Oh, that's a good one.
Henry?
Henry? No.
Ian Bickle or something like that.
Andy Bickle.
Andy Bickle, sorry, that's the one.
Yeah, Andy Bickle of Australia. Good cricketer. Found himself 12th 19 times.
Oh, that's a good start. Very good start to the podcast. We'll take that. Probably good to actually talk a little bit about cricket instead of everything else. But so anyways, if you do enjoy this podcast and want to support us, please like, subscribe, rate and review. It helps the cause. If you want to help us even more, we've got Patreon, Maximum Cricket. But in the meantime, sit back, grab yourself your favourite snack and enjoy some idiots talking about some gurt.
It's a yes bank maximum, the first of this contest. That is brilliant. It's a hero maximum. On the ground, down the ground, another hero maximum.
Boys, didn't get a snack this week, unfortunately. Ran out of time, but I did have a lovely 250ml can of Coca-Cola Zero Sugar in the new sleek red cans. I was quite impressed with that. Anyone else got a wee lovely snack today?
The last podcast recording of flipping around, so it's sort of breakfast time here, but I believe I've got some ham and cheese croissants on the way, which is just a lovely way to start the day.
Hello. That's lovely.
Just a lovely sort of nestle in with your podcast, grab a ham and cheese croissant, maybe a coffee, and get your day started the right way with the Maximum Cricket Podcast.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear this, but just quietly as we speak, that's just a wee 355 of the best getting cranked there. With black gold on a Monday night.
That is beautiful. One of the great sounds actually. We Coke opened up. I think you were saying it before, Jacko, your last night in Scotland. So I guess speaking of Scotland, you didn't make it to a Caps game, I believe, but hell of a tour for the Caps.
Yeah. I mean, fantastic way to just, I suppose, impose our will on a minnow nation, wasn't it? Really? Just, yeah. I mean. We'll send our sort of half our first 11, half our second 11, and I mean we'll just absolutely decimate you with just hitting the ball a massively long way and as hard as we possibly can. So quite interesting. Bowled to the Scotland boys before the first two games and after, and they're sort of hoping for a famous upset sort of early in the week, and then sort of Saturday a little bit shell shocked with how hard the New Zealand players were hitting the ball. So, I mean, probably a good demonstration of sort of our dominance. Good for a few guys to get a bit more of a hit on the international stage. But, just clean them up, really.
Yeah, I guess batting-wise, if I'm just looking at the scorecards, it's a good point. It was one of my talking points. You've got the first T20, New Zealand pile on 225. The next T20, 254. I think that's a record for us, I think. And then this morning, chasing 306 in a 50-over game, we chase it down 3 down in like 45 overs. I sort of watched the about 20 overs this morning, and they could have pushed a lot harder, a lot earlier. They could have easily got 380, 400 if they were going first. So, considering our two best bats, Kane Williamson and Devon Conway, aren't playing, positive signs for the batting depth.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, as we sort of talked about pre-series, nice to see Finn put it together on the world stage again. We sort of were talking that we wanted to see that big sort of devastating knock from him. So, I mean, first game to see him make that sort of statement in T20 cricket, very nice. So, a lot of good things to like there for the World Cup. Mark Chapman really stepping up in the second 2 games. Probably the best he's batted for New Zealand for a while. So
he's a good player, right?
Like, very good player.
He's a very good player. Like for someone that's not really doesn't play a lot for New Zealand, he dominates at like the domestic scene, and he doesn't really put a foot wrong in the black jersey.
Yeah, I was going to say it is like you wonder what you can really get out of 220s and 1 ODI, but there's actually a few positives there with obviously Braces kicking on again to make that a real good tour for him, and Chapman getting 100, Fennell and 100 and a 50. So it's and our 3 players, I guess, when we talked about last week about just hitting the ball hard, they all sort of fit that category. And if we do go to that style of T20 of just picking guys that are just going to whack it and hope 2 or 3 come off, could be a sign of the future for the Caps.
Yeah, it's quite a imposing batting lineup with a lot of power. Like I think we talked about that last time, and well, I guess we should probably talk about the elephant in the room. And like Scotland weren't amazing. Obviously, New Zealand should win that game, but there was a bit of a step down from like Ireland to Scotland. So I think they'll be disappointed in that respect. But still, like you can only do what you can do against the opposition.
And I think you've still got to do that. Like I think as a big nation, you've still got to do your bit and do these tours. You know, like there's no way those guys can improve unless they start playing teams like New Zealand, like India, Australia. So I think part of these tours is just doing your bit as a big nation to try and make the game a bit more global.
Well, that's it. I mean, we can't complain about Australia never touring us, and then like complain about touring like a minnow. It's sort of a bit hypocritical. So that's a good point.
The bowlers, the quicks all sort of bowled okay. It would have been nice to see. I suppose it's tough with 2 T20s, but it would have been nice to see one of them. I mean, Duffy bowled quite well, but it would have been nice to see one of them take a huge bag and really assert themselves as that next guy up. Yeah, I mean, touching on Bracewell, hell of a winter tour for the man. He's basically gone from barely playing any cricket for New Zealand, so I'd say he's probably in nearly every squad in every format after that tour. So, I mean, you love to see a guy like that who's put a lot of yards in for a long time in New Zealand cricket to sort of kick on.
Yeah, I'd say him and Mitchell have probably been the big winners of the winter tour, eh? Mitchell, especially in those tests, obviously just went from strength to strength and looked our best bat by a fair way there. And then Braces has emerged in the shorter formats is going to be a big part of our future with bat and with ball in the T20s and ODIs. So one thing I was going to say, Jacko, you only sort of touched on you having a wee bowl to the boys. What was that like for you?
Any polls?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a few polls, yeah. No, it was good. To be fair, I've been here for nearly 6 weeks now, so no, it was pretty lucky that the coach sort of got me along a few times. So yeah, no, I mean, always nice to do it. But
did it seem a pretty like pretty professional environment there, or can you tell it's a wee bit of a lower level than the Caps and that, or is it all pretty professional?
Yeah, it's probably similar to like a first class setup here, I'd say.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have a domestic cricket circuit here, so they have like 2 big club leagues and then international cricket.
Yeah.
I think they're missing that like stepping stone, but it felt sort of similar to a first class side in New Zealand, which probably shows the result that happened for the Blackcaps, really.
Any kit?
Nah, no kit.
Nah, it's disappointing.
That is very disappointing, actually.
Yeah, and no, you made sure did you appeal for any Abu Dhabis?
Yeah, thankfully Paul Collingwood's moved on from the Scotland job, so full circle. Didn't get any full appeals. Tried to sneak one through the pads this time instead of take that uncertainty out of the equation.
Nice one. That's probably a good way to put a bow on that sort of series, and then probably move on to probably the biggest cricket series going, the biggest sporting series going in that sort of part of the world is the Commonwealth Games. There is some cricket being involved in with the women playing a wee T20 sort of circuit. Before we touch on that, boys, the Commonwealth Games as a whole, what do you make of it? Because I'm probably maybe a little bit of a hot take, but I'm not a massive Common Games sort of guy. It just feels like it's a little bit Olympics light. Not to say that I don't enjoy New Zealanders doing well and they get medals, but it's sort of like what's the difference between that and the Olympics?
It's almost
Yeah,
just like a tour of Scotland Island, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's not. Yeah, it's a good point. Good point.
It's not quite there.
It's sort of the minnows league of the Olympics, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, without your big dogs, your USA's, your Russia's, your China's, who sort of really, those Olympic medals are just huge for them. I mean, it does take away from the spectacle a wee bit, in my opinion. Yeah, the Com Games as a whole, it's an interesting concept because, yeah, you're basically putting on a poorer version of the Olympics.
In saying that, I do love having it on though. I love like events like that where you always like can just have it on in the background. You don't need to necessarily pay too much attention, and then suddenly someone's doing something cool, and you just flick it on for 5 or 10. You know, you watch a few sports you don't normally watch. Like suddenly cycling gets quite cool for a minute there, and so I still definitely like having it on, but completely with you. It's not quite the big dog league, is it?
Yeah, but I guess it is good for those sports because it's another time where they get more eyeballs on their sport than they probably don't normally get, which I guess can only be a good thing. But cricket at the games, what are our thoughts on that? Are you for it? Are you pro it? Or you're a sort of like they've got their own thing, or where are we at with cricket at the games?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind to see it actually. I mean, especially more cricket has got to be better. I suppose if you're getting leagues out there, you're getting sort of more things people can aspire for. It's interesting because Commonwealth Games, your Olympics, it's more your obscure sports you sort of enjoy watching over those times. But no, I mean, great to see the girls on the bigger stage. Yeah, nice to just give them something else to compete for, I suppose.
Yeah, it's something I've actually been interested in talking about because it's definitely when a couple of years ago when the Com Games were getting talked about and cricket was on, I was initially like very anti, like there's sort of no need for cricket in the Com Games, but I think and going to have to be very careful how we tread here, with the women's v men sort of argument that always rears up.
Yeah,
but I think it being Women's 2020 is almost perfect. Just don't think. Because of the history there's just far more history in men's cricket, obviously, with, Ashes and that I just don't think it would be taken seriously enough by the men's game at the moment. But I think the sweet spot of women's cricket, I think 2020 is perfect for it. And I think it looks, from what I can gather, from what I've seen and watching that first game, this really means a lot to the girls as well. So I think it's actually perfect. I've came around on it a lot. Just going to the Com Games would be pretty loose, so great experience for the girls. But I think it's holding a bit of weight and a bit of value.
Yeah, I think that's what I said. I was thinking about it earlier today, and I think they've nailed it. Where it's I don't like the women's cricket is they don't play as much as the men do. So I think the men's cricket, there's like we talked about last week, their schedule's too packed. Like if the men went to it, they, like you said, they probably would just field second string teams. It would kind of be like sort of make a mockery of the whole thing. Whereas with the women's game, you feel like it could only be a good thing. Like they've got their World Cups, and this is another. It's kind of like all eyes are on them for a change, which is kind of cool. And like you're going to get some young girls that are sort of they might be watching the Com Games. They might flick over and they might watch a bit of cricket, and they might see Susie Bates whack a 90 odd and go, this game's for me, sort of thing. So it's kind of cool, and because I've always been of the opinion that like team sports at like the Olympics and the Com Games is a interesting one because if the Com Games with the Olympics isn't their pinnacle, I don't think it has a place there. If you know what I mean. Like I've never liked like soccer or football at the Olympics, or basketball's a bit different, but more like or golf and things like that because it's not their like number one.
Yeah, for
thing.
sure. Some of them with you see like soccer, you can only have like 2 players over over certain ages and stuff. Like when you've got to bring in rules to the sport, it just sort of takes away from it. But I think it's a really good thing for the women's game, especially with they don't play Test cricket, so they don't have that fleshing out their calendar as you said. So it's nice for them to get something else on the circuit, and something else that's a sort of a pinnacle to achieve. And I mean, getting gold for your country would be outstanding. So
yeah, and I think potentially if it does go into the Olympic Games at South, that could actually be a big draw card to when a young girl's choosing their sport. The chance to go to the Olympics could actually sway you one way. So if they can keep the sort of the momentum up and get it into the Olympics as well, I think that could actually be big for the game.
100%. Good. And I guess if we actually talk about the tournament as a whole, if we talk about our White Ferns for a start, because I guess New Zealand definitely have a wee shot here. So you've got in one pool you've got Aussie, India, and you got Barbados, which is West Indies. You got Pakistan, and then the other pool you've got England, New Zealand, South Africa, and Sri Lanka. And so Group A, really, I mean, Australia and India are going to get through. That's probably pretty obvious.
Yeah.
The other one, you've got England, New Zealand, and South Africa probably fighting it out.
It's your pool of death, isn't it?
It's a pool of death. So I think it's actually quite a massive result for the New Zealand to actually get a dub against South Africa first up.
Yeah.
So then they can sort of, because South Africa weren't bad. Like they did far better than we did at our home World Cup not long ago. So, massive result for them. And then if they can get through, they can maybe knock over England. Semi-final against India, knockout footy. Anything can happen.
Yeah, I think, and as you said, like we just came off that World Cup, which sort of went a bit disastrous, which I actually thought the country was going to, and sort of did. So it was kind of quite disappointing that result went the way it did, because I think it could have had the potential to sort of grow quite a bit as the tournament went on. Like, I mean, the men's tournament we had here just sort of grew and grew, and it was just the absolute perfect storm with McCullum at the helm, and we played good cricket. And I thought there was a chance it was sort of going to head that way a bit for the women, and I just never sort of got going. And that's why I think this tournament, actually, Susie was talking about it, how sort of important this one is to them. So as you say, they got that win over South Africa. So if they can get through, anything can happen when you only, semi in a final, a couple of games of T20.
I guess the favourites are obviously going to be Australia, though. I mean, they're essentially what the All Blacks used to be in women's cricket at the moment. There was quite a funny sort of scenario where Alana King, I think it was on a hat trick, and her captain dropped the hat trick delivery, and it was quite a easy-ish catch, I believe. And I just wonder, how do you go about that? Because you can't be spraying your captain.
No.
And I've never seen something like that, but it's one of those things where the ball would be going up and everyone's like ready to celebrate. And then in the blink of an eye, it's just been taken away.
It's tears all around, really. I'm tearing up thinking about it.
Which is quite something.
That's got to be top 5 all-time worst feelings in cricket. Maybe top 3.
dropping a hat trick?
Nah. Yeah, that's honestly that's getting me like quite sad thinking about doing that. That's nightmare stuff.
Are you like, how they always expect, like, how, like, I don't know, it's probably different at the professional level, but like at club level, they always want like the skipper to kind of like lead the voice, or they get other people, or they sort of like that you want to G people up. How as a skipper can you G up the boys or girls in this scenario, having just dropped a hat trick delivery?
Yeah, tough, very tough. Not a like defining characteristic of a captain, but I've always held the belief that your captain should probably have the safest pair of hands in your team, especially in club cricket. Purely because, I mean, they're the ones that are going to be like, come boys, we've got to lift our standards here, and if they've just dropped a hattie ball, I mean, you can't lift with him, can you? Like, you've got to lift it despite them there at that point.
Do you think like at the club level, every drop catch, like you just lose that little bit of respect for that person? So if they're just consistently dropping catches, like how do you respect that person's decision making?
Yeah, I mean, these players that you genuinely, the ball goes up and I will look away because I just
every team's got
money on the ball.
Yeah, it's a genuine 50. It's a genuine coin toss sometimes.
I mean, this is probably reason number 362 why I never made it as a cricketer. But when a hat trick ball was ever on the cards, I'd honestly dread it coming to me. I'd be genuinely dreading it in the field. Like, I do not want this near me. The bowler oversteps, so we just don't even have the situation.
Fires one down leg side.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Probably a good wee segue onto out or not out, because some more bowler bashing there from Simon. And we thought it was a while ago we did, I can't remember, it was a few weeks ago now, but we did a Net Etiquette sort of out or not out, sort of do's and don'ts basically. And the bowlers, or fast bowlers in general, sort of took a bit of a hammering. And it was fair, but let's not pretend that batsmen or batters aren't, are perfect, because we're not. We definitely do some pretty poor stuff. So we thought we would hand it over to Jacko to defend the fast bowlers around the world, to just sort of fire off a few sort of, I guess, issues with batters.
Yeah, lovely. So I've sort of got three big ones from the quicks, and then I've got a guest appearance from the spinners. I'll go to their defence as well here. But yeah, I'll start with the quicks. This is a huge one for me, and it's walking in front of a quick when they're running in.
Oh.
And it is nothing boils my blood at training more than mid run up. Just someone's not looking, walks straight in front of you, and it's almost day ruining actually.
Just on that, it's kind of related, but it's kind of like, as a spinner, the amount of times like we're able to just sort of sneak in front of fast bowlers in the nets, because you've obviously you've got the longest run up, and it's almost like no one notices you there.
Two sides of the same coin, but yeah, gets annoying. But yeah, someone just blatantly walks in front of you. Yeah, very cool.
It's funny because I was doing a bit of research on like this sort of thing. What's typically people do find annoying, and that was one of the big ones, obviously. And I was just thinking, it's been a few years since I've been involved in a net session. It all just sort of came flooding back to me, that thing, because you know how you'd have most guys bowling over the wicket, and then you'd have that annoying left armour. So and you'd always get it wrong. You'd always bowl your ball and then go down the wrong side, then just hand up apologies, quickly squip to the other side. Well, it actually happened every net session.
Well, there's some left armers that probably bowled about 3 balls a whole training because they couldn't get everyone to move.
And especially if you've got the spin net on the right, quick net on the left, left arm is sort of tucked in behind the spinners. They're just no hope really.
In terms of a rebuttal for that sort of carry on, I don't have a lot to sort of come back with. I guess the only thing I'd say, really. It's not. I wouldn't. It's definitely not just batters. It's probably just a general, just a pain in the ass sort of scenario. But I can definitely. There's one thing that batters do that I know would piss off or fast. But I definitely pissed off me, and I was a spinner. When batters don't sort of pick the ball up and throw it back to you. When they the worst one is if they whack it, if they hit it, that's you need to go back to primary school. And then it's just a bad underarm. It goes over your head or it goes at your shins. It can't be that hard, can it?
Yeah, that was my next point. I've got written down, no passing of the ball back or a poor throw back. You're throwing a ball underarm no more than 5 meters. You've just got to get that right. You've got to get it in between the numbers every time. Thanks, mate.
I tell you what, I remember because it's weird because all of these things, the funny thing about these, and I don't know if you've seen the same thing, but they we call it Netiquette, which I enjoyed very much.
Yeah, I like that.
But these are things that I remember being an issue right from your first practice as a 5-year-old to still being an issue at Prem's level.
Yeah.
Oh,
this just doesn't. This is a constant net problem through the years.
If I see someone that hits the ball, actually whacks it with their bat, and if they hit it hard and it goes past me, there's no chance they're gonna do anything successful in their cricket career. No one's ever done something well after that. It's you definitely. It's you've missed something. I don't know what it is. You just got no netiquette Yeah, it's a massive no-no.
On the flip side, though, I remember because obviously playing with the very famous in Dunedin circles, Dwayne Duck Weir, he would be literally get so angry at you if you gave a bad throwback that I'd honestly be sometimes nervous to throw it back to him.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not a comfortable environment to bat in when you
Yeah.
are legitimately, I'd get the ball, give it the wee underarm, and if it would land at his ankles, I'd be like, this is coming back at me. This is 100% coming back at me.
Yeah, it's probably I think it's almost like a 3-strike policy.
Yeah.
Like you can probably get away with, like, people make mistakes, let's be real. Like you're gonna throw the odd one like at their ankles every now and then. But you can't be doing it every time. That's when it starts to grind your gears. Although to be fair, sometimes I would be guilty of like doing a bad throw for people on purpose. Just to sort of wind up the odd person. And there's no real reason behind it. It was just you thought it was sort of funny. You've obviously had a good rapport with the person.
I can imagine Geordie Scott sort of copping a couple around the ankles from you, actually.
I tend to not do that because he was a massive no-ball person. Like I'm talking like his back foot sort of going over the popping crease, and then he would just bowl bumpers. And like he's not quick, but when he's bowling halfway down the wicket already, it's not what you need. So you just sort of pass the ball, move on. There's some culprits, that's for sure.
My only sort of, and I mean we've brought it up, but the only rebuttal for the batter is deceptively hard to underarm a cricket ball with cricket gloves on.
That's a skill. That is a skill.
Yeah, and I mean, as a bowler myself, when that ball comes around your ankles, you see red, and that just doesn't factor into your your sort of anger at any point in that happening. But I mean, it is a tough thing to do because I mean, I get in there and I'll throw left, right, up and down, nothing down the middle, but expect perfect throws back. So
it's sort of not like the coach gives you 5 to ever practice that either. Like,
just warm up.
I mean, what a ridiculous scene it would be to see, your top 6 just underarming the ball to get practice.
Gloves
do you reckon it's kind of similar to like a keeper underarming it and with their gloves? Like it's quite an underrated skill, but all good keepers can do it.
Yeah.
Like there's no. Like you're not gonna imagine like watching an international game and you've got like Ben Folkes. Let's say Ben Folkes like takes a awesome catch down the leg side and then you just see him like try and underarm it to his fielder and he throws it straight up. Like it would never happen. Like it's like part and parcel, but deceptively hard.
I'll defend the spinners now quickly and before going on to my last one for the quicks. And I mean it'd be great to see you guys take, but this is for the finger spinners more than anything. But batters that just hit the ever living shit out of spinners in the nets and then will not play a slog sweep in a game.
Oh yeah, that's it. This is a good wee top. This is probably like it's not even. It's probably like it's definitely happens in spin. Like it's tough. It's actually tough being like any sort of spinner in the nets because everyone wants to have a go at you. The only sort of comeback I go with is like I'll tell them my field. So I'll say this is my field, just so like if they hit it in that area, unless they smack it on, and then I'm going to sort of yahoo at them and just tell them that they're out, which does sort of calm it down a little bit. But I think that's a good sort of point around just batters like batting nothing like they do in a game.
Gonna say because this is similar to how the bowl. I don't want to go back to the bowlers, but this is a similar one to how you've got bowlers that bowl 130, 140 in the nets and 110 in a game. There's many batsmen that bat like, one absolutely scared to play a shot in the middle and seem to smash everything in the nets.
A couple of the boys been like, well, there's no point me even training because I'm getting nothing out of it because guys are just trying to yahoo me every ball.
Yeah. Yeah, this is probably yet another reason why spinners don't make it in New Zealand. I mean, it starts from the nets, really.
Well, that's the thing. And, like, people just aren't yahooing you like that in a game. Like, sometimes they are, but, like, very rarely.
Yeah, and, I mean, if they do, you put 4 back and say, like, get it over them again. And if they don't, like, they're probably going to get out, aren't they?
Well, that's it. That's it. Yeah, that's no, I don't really have a counter to that. That's no, I got nothing actually.
Yeah,
But,
every club's got their culprit for this, though. I feel.
Oh, I think
Yeah.
most have a couple.
it's actually normally
Yeah.
bowlers even. It's actually normally bowlers even. Just if I could return fire a little bit. It's a lot of tail enders sort of throwing the willow.
That is true.
But I got nothing for you, mate.
Then my last one, and this is sort of an inter-bowler gripe, which is
Oh yeah, now we're talking.
Yeah, could bring some
Or friendly fire.
controversy.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit of friendly fire. And this is quite an interesting one, and it's part-timers grabbing the best red ball in the bag.
That's a good one.
I mean, often, and sometimes it will go unnoticed until you're actually batting at the end of the session, and you're just copping a couple of seeds, and you just pick this like beautiful red ball up, and you've been bowling with a dog toy for an hour and a half, and you just you're just in shock. Like a guy that's like bowling fourth change for the second, has got this brand new like red king almost in his hand, and you're running in with throwdown balls.
It's a red king.
Are
we 1-4 two piece? Just two piece.
Yeah, you know what I'm trying to get across. So that would be my last real pet peeve as a bowler to the other bowlers.
Yeah, that's a good one, and that's a tough one. And I'd love to know a defence. I guess it's kind of taking the piss away, but their rebuttal would probably be like, you've got to learn how to bowl with an old ball.
Yeah.
Which, not untrue, but also like, why are you bowling with a really nice ball then? Like, it makes no sense. Like, when are you ever going to open the bowling at any level, let alone like first grade or prems or whatever?
Two things I'll sort of open the discussion about. Where do you stand, Jacko, on occasionally you'll get a couple of bowlers, maybe the openers who like each other, sharing the best ball?
See, I reckon it's fine if they're bowling like in 10, like if they're bowling in overs potentially.
Yeah.
Or if you've definitely got a bowler between each of them. So if there's 4 in the net.
Yeah.
If there's enough time, if there's any hold up in the net proceedings due to like 2 quick sharing a ball, out you get, grab a dog toy.
Yeah, it's all about flow, isn't it? Like, nets are all about flow, so you've sort of got to work in between. There's nothing that like sort of grinds your gears when you sort of got like someone bowls a ball and then they like pick up that ball and then they throw it to someone else and then that person bowls. It's like, we're just wasting time here, fellas.
And I don't mean to interject our ball discussion, but that probably one last pet peeve from me as a bowler. Middle of the nets, bowlers are warmed up, bowlers are going, and the batters decide to have a 5-minute discussion when they're crossing over in the middle of the pitch. Like that conversation can wait. That's probably my last real gripe.
I don't mind a wee like in between as you cross over, just like someone's actually bowling a bit of heat here.
Yeah.
And then you just
when there's that stop and a full discussion, and
guys
are just sitting there at the top of their mark twiddling their thumbs, that'll really grind me.
Surely, like it's like 20 seconds is more than enough. Like, you shouldn't really need a lot more than that. It's like we're not in between overs here.
Yeah, what about like the classic third grader who gets stuck under the nets trying to lift them and whatnot?
Gets the net caught in the helmet lug.
Yeah. You've got like, you could either, because with our indoors, you could either go down sort of the 10 steps and go right around them, or just go straight through, and you have to sort of lift the net. And sometimes you're a bit heavier than people realise, and they sort of can't get under the net to go into the new one.
Yeah,
that's tough.
At least it's got some comic relief to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would just getting back to the ball discussion. Where do you stand on someone bringing their own ball? Because sometimes someone just turns up with a ripper.
Yeah, as long as it's sort of in regulation and they're happy to, like, if you show up with a good 4-piece, like, that you've been shining, fair play, like, you want to spend $100 on your own ball, like, I'm not going to stop you. But, like, yeah, if you show up with, as I've just said before, a 142 red king and decide to bowl rockets that hoop everywhere, like, you've got to have a look in the mirror there, I reckon. But, yeah, it's that age old. I've had this in the freezer since Christmas, just to tune up certain players. But yeah, it's an interesting one, that bringing your own ball, because it's a big expense to really commit to it, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and they just get fucked as well. Like, I think if I had like guidelines around it, if you like, there's nothing wrong with hooping it as such. It's more like if you're doing something with the ball in the nets that you don't do in the game because the ball is like clearly like tampered with, that's probably an issue. Like if you're on a Saturday and you're just straight up and down, and then in the nets you're like prime Jimmy Anderson, like something's gone wrong there. I'm probably gonna have a word and check that ball and chuck it through the hoops and bin it real quick. So like that's probably where I'm at. But like you said, if you've looked after that ball and it's your ball and you want to fork out, I mean, by all means, do what you like.
I don't know if we want to move on, we can skip this out, but one last thing on the nets and especially batters is, how did you guys go with, did you enjoy it, not enjoy it, waste of time? The classic last 6 balls of the net, someone gives you a scenario, sort of your 18 off 10s, your 18 off 6s.
I generally liked it. I don't know about you guys, but definitely as a coach, it's definitely a go-to. It's a massive go-to, and you can do different scenarios and things like that. I just felt like it gave you a little more purpose. It was a bit of fun.
Bowlers all together as a team again, didn't it?
Yeah, you set some fields, you look at the batters, that sort of stuff, and it's almost like if you're like a basketballer, it's almost like when you like sort of imagine like a buzzer beater shot in your backyard or something like that. It's kind of like, here's your chance to like. You need 4 off 1 and then you hit like a boundary to win. Like it doesn't really happen very often in a game, but here's a chance to sort of, have a go.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, great way to finish trainings always. And I mean, if your mate's the other end, it's a good way. You can put a pint on it for the after Thursday beer or a coffee for pre-game Saturday, and just lift that intensity up a little bit to end your training. So yeah, always been a big fan.
Starting today, you will play like winners, act like winners, and most importantly, you will be winners. If you listen and learn, you will win basketball games. And gentlemen, winning in here is the key to winning out there.
Righto. We'll move on to Coach Corner this week. As always, hit us up at maximumcricket21@gmail.com or a DM on Insta will do the trick. This is a question from last week that we didn't get to. It's around the Test game as a whole, but it's got a few layers. Will teams aim to chase in the 4th innings more from here on ahead? So this is probably interesting because it came just after the first test of Pakistan, Sri Lanka, where Pakistan chased down 360 odd pretty comfortably in the end. And then we've obviously had the wave of the Bazball with England doing all sorts in their summer. And it's quite an interesting point because I guess they probably will. I guess teams will probably more likely chase it. They may not necessarily win more often. I do think teams are backing their white ball skills over their actual defensive skills a lot. That's the way I'm sort of seeing it, where a lot of teams feel like they're more of a chance of chasing it down using white ball skills than actually like defending, because like red ball skills probably aren't up to it. It probably led to a bit of overconfidence, I guess, for the second test. I talked to you boys earlier in the week. So it was the second test and Sri Lanka were pretty much on top. They set Pakistan 508 for victory, which is a world record by almost 100. Mohammed Yusuf is the batting coach, I think, but he was quoted as saying, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, it was something like, "We're not daunted, we've done it before," which really sort of got my attention, as it was a world record chase, which means that it has not been done before, not by Pakistan, not by anyone. So I was interested to hear him say that he's done it before. Sure enough, they lost by about 260 runs and fell well short. So that was interesting. I guess that was a wee sort of that was sort of like a wee snippet of the mindset of the modern team now. They think they can chase everything. That's pretty much what I've got. I think they will go for it a bit more. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I don't know if it's actually going to change tactics as much. I think it might just change that belief in the 4th innings, as you were sort of alluding to there. Because I think like you're not looking at a wicket and going, we'll chase on day 5 because you've still got to play a lot of cricket to get to there. Like if batting first, the right decision on morning 1, you're not going to be like, well, let's bowl just because we can chase. So I think Test cricket's probably too long to say teams are going to make a decision at the toss to make sure they're chasing. We've got to survive a day and a half. So let's chase this in a day and a half. Because all around the world, day 5 in Karachi, you're not chasing anything. You're just purely surviving against the ragging ball sort of thing. So, yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if it'll change. I don't think it's going to change that the way Test cricket's approached in terms of like the full game and the toss and the tactics around that. But I think it will change the belief in the 4th innings.
Yeah, I'm somewhere in between both years because I think it will for some teams. I think Jacko's right. There's going to be areas like India and Pakistan where you're not going to choose to bat last when it's going to be the hardest possible time to bat.
Yeah.
But it's just like anything. Like it wasn't that long ago in ODIs teams. It was always the idea that you bat first, you get runs on the board, you score those runs, you back yourself to defend it, and now that just completely changes. I think sort of the game does evolve, and whether it happens, and if other teams see teams have success with batting last and getting results, then it will just seep into other teams' games, and they will try it as well, whether it works or not. So I think we'll probably see a slight uptick in it, and teams, maybe if it's a 50-50 and, a couple of years ago or even now still, you would choose to just bowl last. Maybe I think on those occasions, more teams will choose to bat last and back themselves to get a winning score. So I think we'll see a slight uptick in it, not dramatically, and especially, as you say, because there's just places you're not going to ever do it. Somewhere in between. I think we'll see a slight uptick in it. But I think another thing, what Jacko, perfect point, is if people are forced to do it, they're probably not going to fear it quite as much now, or at least just take that positive approach of trying to win the game rather than play out for a draw.
Yeah, there seems to be and I guess like baseball's taking it to like 1,000, but teams that just seem to be like less afraid to lose. Like they're more, they'll try their hand a bit more often because failure isn't like a stigma anymore. Like it's sort of like cricket's sort of changing a little bit. Just the mindset of it. Like I remember, like growing up, it's all about like being defensive and not playing a dumb shot. And like if you play an aggressive shot and you go out early, like it's a big no-no. Whereas like nowadays, like just it's not. No one thinks like that anymore. Like very rarely. Kids are just taught differently. Like it's more attack first, defend second, and it's more just like express yourself. So like the negative stigma around the game seems to be disappearing a little bit. Like obviously there's going to be times where you're going to have to bat out the draw, and it's going to be very interesting to see how a baseball team led by Ben Stokes manages that. I wonder if they'll use a Nighthawk in that scenario.
Yeah.
I just think like teams are more like they'll take more of a risk for a bigger reward sort of thing.
It'll still be like quite result based, that won't it? It's like sort of how the NBA's moved to everyone taking threes because it's working. So if teams continue to see like teams having success with it, then it will happen more and more. If suddenly it's starting to fail, and this was sort of just a blimp and it was just a perfect storm and worked for England, then obviously it'll go back to business as per. But if teams have success with it, then other teams will continue to do it.
World Test Championship. I mean, there is a bit more urgency on results in series now. Like if you're 4th on that table, you need to, I suppose, really try and push yourself up the table a bit, sort of thing. So, yeah, I mean, the World Test Cricket Championship could be a driver of teams being that more positive because there is a bit more on the line in every series now as well.
Yeah, it's a very good point, and it can only be good for the game. That's for sure.
It will make like a fighting 40 off sort of your 310 still like even more funner to see because it will just be so rare and a guy's just taking them on the chest and really battling for his 40. It'll make it quite the event now.
There is something to be said about just like blocking out a draw. Like just when you're like when you've got no chance of winning and you're just like dead betting it. I think that'll still happen when required, but I guess it's like look back at not this tour but the last tour we went to England, like when we set like New Zealand set England 270 off 70 overs. Teams will go for that a lot more nowadays than they ever would. So that's probably where it'll make a difference. But there is something to be said about, just grinding out a draw and then just doing a wee Yahoo. Like you've like at the end of it, like you've been battered basically the whole test, but you both got the same like result essentially.
That real right, you've been way better than us, but we're gonna make sure you get nothing out of this as well.
The old Monty and Jimmy Anderson, like in the Ashes, like batting like 11 overs, like those moments are just great.
It's got to be one of the toughest things to sort of explain to the neutral. Like this the exact same result, and one team's on their knees gutted, and the other's on their pins, just Chaho and beers flowing.
That is us for another week, team. Thanks once again to our award-winning listeners for continuing to listen to this dribble with our award-winning co-hosts, Lugsy and Jacko. While you're still here, chuck us a like, a subscribe, a rate and review. Really helps the cause. And if you're feeling extra generous, check out the Patreon at patreon.com/maximumcricket. But in the meantime, Lugsy, Jacko, have yourself a great week, and we'll catch you again next week.
Sounds good. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate. Safe travels home there, Jacko.
Thank you. We'll see you talk when we're in the same country.
Catch ya.
Sounds good.